What's up? I just saw the press conference, man. Let me tell you. Oh, man. Imagine the Errol Spence fan that got excited when they saw Errol with the shag back when he fought Ugas. Only to, only to see him almost get knocked out by a dude with like 11 knockouts. But that's neither here nor there. Dude, it's good to see Bud take this personally. You know, this sport has been missing this rivalry. Used to always have this back in the 80s and 90s. You know, it just wasn't all nice and whatever else, how Canelo wants it to be. You see guys like Munguia, Jermell Charlo, you know, they'll sit there, you know, they'll be like, oh, all power and glory to, you know, whoever, you know, and of course Canelo, but these guys would be sitting up there worshiping Canelo, you know what I'm saying? And Terrence Crawford, again, you want to poke the bear, you want to play popularity contests, you know what I'm saying? And I mentioned this 2 videos ago. You know, I love the fact that he said, you know, are you going to be great? You know, are you going to be good? Are you a great fighter or are you a good fighter? You know what I'm saying? Bud's mind game is already, you know, very good as well right now, and I'm highly impressed with that. Because with Canelo, we've talked about this. He's overrated, guys. It's just that simple. Whatever you guys want to say, we know he's overrated. You know, it's crazy when you have to actually meet the guy in person. He's actually standing there in front of you. This isn't Caleb Plant. This isn't Berlanga. This isn't Munguia. You know what I'm saying? You're back to a guy with fast hand speed, a guy who has, again, punch placement, timing, those types of things, guy who can adapt, a guy who has more skill, tools, and boxing IQ than you. The only thing you have on him is size. You know, you're not here fighting these dudes that are weight drained. You're not here rigging the game. You know what I'm saying? In these little, silent agreement type fights, you know. You're not fighting Jermell Charlo, again, you know what I'm saying? A guy who is a mental midget. You're fighting Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is built different. You know what I'm saying? He did not have to rely on the machine. He didn't have to be in the boardroom and they sat here and plotted out what he's going to do. You know what I'm saying? Bud Crawford shouldn't even be where he's at right now. That's just the bottom line. He truly is a Cinderella man. And again, the boxing world, you know, they always try to hype up their favorites, their guys that they have their money invested into, like a Tank Davis, like a Canelo Alvarez, you understand? And, you know, all this favoritism and, you know, preferential treatment that these guys, it makes them soft and it stunts their growth. I remember catching crap on this channel when I was telling you guys, all it's going to take is a dude that ain't there to lay down versus Tank. And where are we at today? You know what I'm saying? And with Canelo, again, you're fighting guys who just got caught for PEDs and were on a 2-year layoff for a belt. This type of stuff, it matters in fights like this. Every little part of it's going to matter. You know what I'm saying? You're too used to the Jake Paul route. Jake Paul is actually using your tactics, you know, during his matchmaking. You know what I'm saying? He's telling people you can't beat me up and all this other nonsense. You know, and it's going to show in this fight. I am not impressed with your guy, Canelo. I'm not. He's not what you guys say he is. And I just come here and I like to troll. You know, I like to bait people into talking crap to me in the comment section, whatever else. And it's always fun to get to do this to a boxing fan base that only feels secure because you're part of a group, because you're part of a herd. You know what I'm saying? None of you can really stand on your own. They don't make people like that. And that's exactly what Bud is. He's a guy who knows how to stand on his own. The boxing world tried to duck him, tried to exclude him and everything else. And everybody told him, you don't have a resume. And, you know, we kicked him off the Olympic team, you know what I'm saying, for Gary Russell Jr. And because we didn't like Bud, because Bud is the truth. And that's just the way it is for people like Bud. He's always going to get this type of crap. You know what I'm saying? He's always going to get this type of criticism. He's always going to draw this type of hate and whatever else you're starting to see around the internet. It's been that way for a while. You know, even when he's fighting guys like Benavidez, that year his fight was the most watched fight. Although Benavidez had one leg, you know. Benavidez definitely did better than Spence, by the way. So did a lot of fighters like Postol and, of course, Mean Machine and those type of fighters. But regardless of all that, guys, you know, popularity contest fans ain't going to fight for you in the ring. You know, Canelo, again, he needs certain things to feel confident. This is a guy who puts rehydration clause even on people like Rocky Fielding. You understand? You drained Julio Cesar Chavez. You couldn't even make that a fair fight. You know what I'm saying? A good fight for the Mexican fight fans back in the day. And you got to go and you got to ruin it. And my thing is this as well. This is what I like. You know what I'm saying? Going back to the Errol Spence Shag, I've been missing Psychopath Bud. I'm wondering, where is that guy? You know what I'm saying? Now, Sean Porter and his daddy, they knew that after Gary Russell Jr. sucker punched Terrence Crawford, they knew that Crawford was out there waiting in the bushes for Gary Russell. And if it would have gone Crawford's way, he would have killed Gary Russell Jr. But these people, they knew that. They let his hot-headedness and temperament get to him, and they got to use that against him to prop up a dude who's done what again? He had a belt for 10 years, but how many fights did he have in 10 years? Where's Gary Russell Jr. at today? You know what I'm saying? He's over here pushing that African spiritualism, but that's a whole nother subject altogether. Listen, guys, this is Psychopath Bud. This is a guy, again, you have to understand, has a competitive nature like a Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Like, who else can you think of when they smell blood and they're in kill mode? You know what I'm saying? Wayne Gretzky. Who else can I think of? You know what I'm saying? Kobe Bryant. This guy's in a different type of echelon than your dude who's used to theatrics and, CG and sound effects and everybody acting like he's the best. You know what I'm saying? This dude has sat here. He's bum bashed for the longest time. He definitely has PTSD from the Bivol fight. You saw how he didn't want no smoke with anybody, really, that he knew wasn't going to be a threat after that Bivol fight. That really hurt and shocked his ego. The dude was sitting here hugging trees and meditating. You know what I'm saying? He's part of that group now because you hang out with people like Steph Curry and whoever else, when you're at the nightclubs and those types of things. My dude Bud's been pretty humble, but again, Crawford has this type of psychopathic urge I've been waiting to see, but Sean Porter and his daddy, they knew back then. And this is why you saw the buildup during Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford. Sean Porter was trying his best not to awake Mr. Hyde. Sean Porter and his daddy knew we got to keep him as Dr. Jekyll. We don't want Mr. Hyde to come out. You know what I'm saying? And Mr. Hyde, we haven't been seeing too many glimpses of Mr. Hyde. You know what I'm saying? Crawford, he's been pretty calm. He's been pretty mature and things like that. He hasn't really taken this stuff too personal. I don't even think he regarded Spence as like anything because they asked him, is Spence your best opponent? And he's like, we'll wait and we'll see. You know what I'm saying? And this only triggered fans even more. And he just systematically went out there and he slow cooked Errol Spence. That's what he literally did. You know what I'm saying? I knew he was going to knock Spence down early in the fight. I told you guys he was going to do this. And I think he could have knocked out Spence in round five or six if he really wanted to. But he slow cooked him. He, played with him, toyed with him, played with his food, as you guys said is his problem. And that's precisely what he did before he went out there and landed about an 8-punch combination on him. And we're not talking about Canelo combinations and flurries where you're just throwing, output, you're not really landing. Like I said, Crawford, he actually knows how to juggle. We've seen him do this against Madrimov as well. Crawford has abilities that Canelo hasn't reached yet. And you guys can sit here and play make-believe that fighting a Triple G with a terrible resume himself, that validated your dude for some reason. You know what I'm saying? Did it help him when he fought Bivol? No. And he had a 4-round edge again. You understand? Bomac and them are right. He knows how to lose. That's a problem. But he does have PTSD from his loss with Bivol. And he went extremely hard in ducking people that he knows are true threats. Again, this is another situation where he's cornered into kind of a cherry pick gone wrong. And it's because of Crawford's competitive nature. Crawford is a psychopath, guys. Again, Mean Machine, after he got floored, got knocked down, however you guys want to tell it, you understand, that dude got right back up and he went right at Mean Machine. And he didn't stop till Mean Machine was done. You understand? And again, Sean Porter and his daddy knew, like, hey, we got to tell him he's cool. We like him and all that. He didn't poke the bear too much, Sean Porter. You know what I'm saying? And Crawford, again, he was put in a situation where he was in a fight he didn't even want. You understand? He's had to rely on getting these fights that he doesn't want. This is a fight that he actually does want. And Crawford's not one to let opportunities go to waste, like Errol Spence, who ends up getting injured and having to duck, Manny Pacquiao. You understand? Where they're pulling all this nonsense where Ugas's opponent magically had his eye messed up too, just like Errol Spence. Again, guys, you know what I'm saying? These guys are all falling short, although you guys tried to put them on a pedestal above Terrence Crawford. And Bud is just once again making the whole boxing world look stupid. And he once again is, okay, is this what you guys are going with? It's like a kid that has like a name that's easy to make fun of when they're like in grade school or something, like kindergarten, like let's just say their last name is Dick or something like that. And, kids make fun of him the whole time about his name. Crawford, he's been through the same thing, and it's been going on his entire career. He didn't fit in with the group. He didn't fit in with the in crowd. Bud was the outsider, and this is what I'm trying to tell you. This builds dangerous people when they're put in this situation, when they're not conditioned by the machine, when they're not conditioned by the group, mob-minded type thinking. And this has set him apart from a lot of fighters like your Errol Spence's, like your Sean Porter's, like your Danny Garcia's, like your Keith Thurman's. And it even sets him apart from your guys like Canelo. Even with all of Canelo's assistants, he got undisputed again fighting Skull, correct, in a very terrible performance. Even with his assistants, but he's only catching up to what Bud has already done. You know what I'm saying? And it makes perfect sense that this is Bud's 3-time undisputed, champion, first time in history, although, again, in the old days, they just had one belt, you know what I'm saying? They always got to hype things up today, but it is what it is. But it's perfect that this is the fight where he's going to set up again. Here we are playing the same games, you understand? And this time it's your big dog. It's King Hippo this time. You know what I'm saying? Bud now has to show you that your King Hippo ain't what you all say he is too. And then what is everybody going to say? I already see them coming with the excuses, just like during this last press conference here in Vegas. They're saying Canelo's past, now Canelo, the younger fighter, is past his prime. You see how they do this stuff? And they did this for guys like Lomachenko. They did this nonsense for guys like GGG, but nobody cared that Floyd was 36-year-old. Nobody was holding Floyd to those type of standards, or that he was older than Manny Pacquiao. You always keep guys like Bud on a higher standard that your other so-called greats, the guys that you prop up, are not held to. Bud is set on a different standard. This, of course, is going to help Bud. This, of course, is going to hurt your fighter Canelo. It's just that simple, guys. You always got to fake hype these people up. And just like Spence, just like everybody else, you're going to see that your dude's not all that. Without the CG, without all the assistants, without everything else. Canelo's a good, solid fighter, like I said. But, I always maintain that, to me, he, in any other era, he'd be like a Danny Garcia. Just a $2, hooker that's passed around for people to beat up on. You know what I'm saying? You guys try to take that and you try to act like this dude's a true all-time great. You know what I'm saying? Without the help and assistance, where is your Canelo? Let's ask ourselves that. Maybe his 2 losses and 2 draws, or maybe 4 losses, or he's already got around 10 losses. You were never near Floyd Mayweather's level. You know what I'm saying? You never did with like even a Devin Haney did, which would show that, another guy, Lomachenko, how he was able to beat that. You know what I'm saying? You've never thrown in those types of situations. Your first belt was Matthew Hatton. You understand? You want to sit here and talk at a catch weight, by the way, and you want to sit here and talk crap about Crawford's resume when you've been nothing but, again, you've been CG'd, you've been the sound and everything. It's like watching a blockbuster movie today. You have a whole team that focuses on production alone, and typically you need these guys beat before they even get in the ring. And it's cool that you show that you got some footwork and head movement, whatever else, except for when you fight guys who truly are elite and aren't there to lay down. You know what I'm saying? And Bud's not going to lay down. That's the whole point here. You're fighting a real one. It's a far different beast. You're not fighting Yildirim, who's been out of the sport for 2 years again. He was also busted for PEDs. He was one of your sparring partners. You know, I'm sure he picked up on the PED trade while he was working in your camp all the time. You know what I'm saying? You've needed every little advantage just to be where you're at, just to stay afloat where you're at. You know what I'm saying? Bud did not need that. These dudes tried to set Bud up. These dudes tried to play keep away with Bud, and he still was ahead of your dude. And he's going to be ahead of this dude on fight night. That's all I really got to say. I will say this as well. You know, if Canelo does knock Bud down, you know, there's a probability of it happening. You know, probably about, I would say, 50 to 60% chance he can knock down Bud. You know, that's cool and all. You know what I'm saying? But I'm trying to tell you, that's, you know, if you don't knock out Bud, that could easily go against you pretty easily. Because like I said, just like how Sean Porter and his daddy knew about Bud, you know, you saw how they were all nice and everything. You know, Canelo, he's just trying to save face for his fans and look cool on the TV. It's all he's really doing, to be quite honest with you. But these fighters, they know realistically in their heart what Terrence Bud Crawford is, unlike you fans, you know, unlike you people that worship these guys. You know, and I'm trying to tell you, Bud he's different, guys. He is way different than your guy Canelo Alvarez. There was no silver spoon. There was no silver platter handed to him. He was not put on the red carpet, fast pass, you know, to greatness. You know, he doesn't have your dude's assistants and everything else, his PEDs. You know, we're all still waiting for Canelo's little test here. You know, we know how that's going to go. I don't care about your dude doing PEDs. I'm telling you right now, he's got a lot of flaws. Bud has had to be what he is for a reason. You see, he's always had to go uphill. Your dude, again, had level little playing fields for him. You know, plains leveled for him. You understand? He didn't have to climb up no mountains. He didn't have to do none of that. This dude was getting preferential treatment before you guys acted like you were his fans, like you do today. You guys weren't his fans. You only do it, again, for clout and to look cool on the internet. You know what I'm saying? Bud is about to shock the world. Although a lot of you, you know, you probably won't be too shocked to see that Canelo was maybe overrated, like we all know. You know what I'm saying? The truth hurts, guys. It hurts badly. It is the worst thing to deal with, and Bud has relied on the truth. He hasn't relied on this nonsense. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't relying on Curtis Stevens and Matthew Macklins like GGG again. The only reason you guys hype up GGG is because he validates Canelo. That's the only point. You know what I'm saying? Bud is what they try to make you believe GGG is. That's who Bud actually is. He don't need no fake little narratives and popping up. Bud is the truth, guys. And the truth always stands. And of course, you guys haven't learned this by now. Cream always rises to the top. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.